Hi, this is Todd with Lambda Math. In this video, we're going to look at unit rates as far as they relate with tables. In addition, we're also going to look at the constant proportionality. We're going to talk about equations, and we'll be finding missing values of the table, and also even problems not even on the table. So all that's coming up next on the Lambda Math. The table itself is pretty simple, but from this simple thing, we can get a lot of different information. First of all, we can determine, is a table proportional? And if it is, what's its constant? Depending on the table, we can find out the unit rate. We can use the table to help us create an equation, find the value of x, and we also use it to help us find the value of y. If we understand how a table works, we can find missing amounts, and we can also use this table to help us find other amounts not even listed on the table. The first thing we're going to do is determine, is the table proportional? Now, these first two examples are both going to be proportional. And what we're basically going to do is just take our y and we're going to divide it by x. So the y is the right side of the table, x is the left side of the table. So we're taking the right side, in this case 6, and dividing by the left side, the x side, 2. And you can see when we're doing that, we're getting 3. And we're getting that every single time. If you can divide y by x and get the same number every single time, that means it's proportional. So we're going to get ready to look at the next one here. This table is also going to be proportional. So what we're going to do is, again, just like last time, take y divided by x. Now in this case, we're getting the number 7. And when we're dividing and we get the same number every time, that means it's going to be proportional. And we know, like 21 divided by 3 is 7, 20 divided by 4 is 7. Every single time we're dividing this y side by the x side, we're getting proportional. So both of these are proportional tables. Next are a couple examples of tables that are not proportional. So if we take our y divided by x, 60 divided by 15, we get 4. 80 divided by 20 is also 4. 100 divided by 25, also 4. But when we get to this next one, 108 divided by 26, you can see it's not exactly 4. It's close. Because it's even just slightly different, that eliminates this problem right here, or this table right here, from not being proportional. Now, we'll look at another table that is also not proportional. We start off with 12 divided by 2, it's 6. But 35 divided by 7 is 5. So already we know they're not proportional. Now, if you look at the rest of this table, if we continue to divide y by x, the rest of the way we're getting 6s. It doesn't matter if you get 6 1,000 times. If just one time you don't get the same number, it's not proportional. Once you know a table is proportional, finding the constant proportionality is a piece of cake. So let's look at our two tables that were proportional. On the one on the left, every single time we divided the y by x, we got the number 3. The 3 is our proportion, or our constant. Same thing here on table 2. Every time we divided, we got the number 7, so the constant proportionality is just 7. One of the things that's important to understand is the formula for the constant of proportionality. So you'll see this written on tests or different assignments. And the formula is k equals y divided by x. Well, y divided by x, we already talked about that with the table. Which usually throws some people off is the letter k. The k just stands for constant. I believe it might be like a German word for constant. I'm not 100% sure. But we do know this, k equals the constant of proportionality. So next what we want to do is use our knowledge of constants to help us find unit rates. So here, instead of x and y, we have hours and miles. And what we're doing is taking the right side, in this case the miles, and we're dividing it by the left side, the hours. You notice when we do that, we're getting the same number every time, 60. So we know this table is proportional, and so the constant for this table is 60. What we're going to do is use that 60 as part of our unit rate. So it's going to be 60 something. So because we're taking miles divided by hours, what it's going to be 60 miles per hour. So basically 60 miles each hour. So next we're going to look at this one here, points and games. And now, even though we didn't mention it, the games represent x and the points represent y, just like over here. Hours was x and miles is y. So if we go back to this one here, we're taking our points, the y side, and dividing by the number of games. And when we do that, we're going to get the exact same number every single time, 25. And again, that means that this table is proportional. So we know our constant is got to be the 25. And we're going to use that 25 as part of our unit rate. So it's going to be 25 of something. And in this case, because we're taking points divided by games, it's going to be 25 points per game, or points like for each game. So we basically get the unit rate the exact same way we would find our constant of proportionality. So next we're going to look at creating equations to find both x and to find y. So again, we're looking at our two tables from earlier that we know are proportional. So we're trying to find y. And you can see that earlier we were dividing and we came up with 3 when we did y divided by x. So if we're trying to find y, we're going to use that 3, which was our constant. And what we'd have to do is take 3 times whatever our x is, and that's going to give us our y. So the equation to find y would be 3x equals y. Now, if we're trying to find x, what are we doing to the y to make it equal the x? And again, we have to use the number 3, which is our constant. In this case, we would take y divided by our constant, or 3. It's going to be the exact same here with table 2. If we're trying to find y, so if that's our goal right now is find y, we have to use our constant, which is the 7. Our goal is to get y, so what are we going to do with the 7? Well, we're going to multiply it by whatever x is. So it's 7x, so 7 times x equals y. When we get to the point where we're trying to find x, just like before, we have to think, what are we going to do to the y to give us the x? And we're going to be using this constant of 7. So we're going to take whatever y is, and we're dividing it by 7. And that will give us x. So think about like 21 divided by 7, that would be 3. So next up, we're going to look at creating equations for unit rates. And we're going to start with a couple of tables we used earlier. The first one was hours and miles. The other one was points in games. We already know our constant of proportionality was 60, and we know the unit rate was 60 miles per hour. So the key is you have to use whatever your constant is as part of your equation. So this one, if we're trying to find miles, we're going to take, which is y, we're going to take 60 times whatever x is, in this case hours, and that would give us miles. If we're trying to find hours, again, we have to use 60. You would take whatever the miles would happen to be, which is the y, divided by 60, and that will give us the number of hours. So that's how we would do that one. If we looked at points in games, we know our constant is 25, and the unit rate is 25 points per game. If I want to find out the number of points, I'm taking the 25, which is our constant. We're going to multiply it by x, which in this case is games, and that's going to give us our total number of points. If we're doing this in reverse, if we're trying to figure out how many games we played based on the points we have, you're going to take the number of points, you're going to divide that by our constant, and when you do that, that will give you the number of games played. So up next, we're going to use these equations that help us fill in the missing parts of a proportional table. The key part here is you have to find an x and a y that go together. So in this case, x is 15, y is 142.5. We take our y divided by our x, and we're getting 9.5. So that's our constant. So our constant proportionality is 9.5. So if we're trying to create like an equation to find y, it would be 9.5 times x is going to equal y. And so all we have to do is just take whatever x's we have here times the 9.5, and that will give us our y. So the first one's going to be 57. The next one we go 9.5 times 9 will give us 85.5, so that would be the y there. So we're just taking wherever the x is and multiplying it by that constant. Now, if we're trying to find x, which is what's missing now, we got 3 missing x's. We're going to take whatever y is divided by that constant, and that will give us our answers. So in the first one here, you can see that we're going to end up with 2. So the next one, we're going to be taking 47.5 divided by 9.5, and that's going to give us 5. And then we get to the last one, we're taking whatever y is, 171, divided by that constant of 9.5, and that gives us our answer of 18. So we filled in that entire table. So here's the next example. You can see the x is 9 and the y is 117. So we're taking the y divided by the x, and we're getting 13. So the constant is 13. We're trying to come up with some equations to solve for y. We're going to take that take that constant times x, and that will give us the y. So 4 times 13, that's going to give us 52. We'll just fill that right on in. Next, we'll plug in the 5. So 5 times 13 is 65. And we have 1 down here at the bottom, so we can take 19 times 13, and that's going to give us 247. And if we're trying to fill in the x column, so we need to find the value of x, we're just going to take whatever the value of y is, we're going to divide it by our constant of 13, and that will give us whatever x is. So 156 divided by 13, that's going to give us 12. And then the next one, the 208, we'll divide it by 13, and that gives us 16. And so that's how we would fill in our table. Well, I hope you found the video helpful. We'd love it if you give it a thumbs up, and we'd love if you would subscribe to our channel. Until next time, we'll see you on the Land of Math.